The following episode may contain explicit language and spoilers. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, and welcome to another episode of What's Your Fandom? This is Stuart here, flying the geek flag, traversing the way through the multiverses as per usual. Today's episode was really interesting because we talked about our reaction to The Last of Us. It was a really fun chat, but I do have to put a little disclaimer out here. Whilst you're listening to this episode, you will hear Mike and I refer to somebody called the Morriston Tickler. Now, this isn't a recurring comic book villain. It is not a criminal at large. Basically, it's just a guy who I was at work with who thought it would be funny to touch my bum whilst I was minding my own business. And the result of that was that he startled me. And it's just a joke that's blown out of massive proportion. I don't think he'll get his own comic book series or his own Netflix documentary. But you can be safe in the knowledge that the Morrison Tickler is no longer at large. It was a one-time incident. That's it. And the only reason he was called the Morrison Tickler is because he was in Morriston when it happened. If he were to pursue his career as a tickler, as it were, I think he would be opening to going to various districts. However, luckily, he just stopped after this one incident. So, with that in mind, relax, have yourself a brew, put your bottom firmly on a seat so that you do not get tickled, and enjoy this episode of What's Your Fandom.
Hello and welcome to What's Your Fandom, the podcast where myself and my good friend Stuart journey through the fandoms of film, TV, games, books and comics, flying our geek flags and talking our way through the multiverses, all of them. My name is Mike. Say hello, Stu.
Hello, Stu.
Hello, Stu. And in this episode, we are going to be talking about The Last of Us on TV. Bit of the game talk, I think, as well, probably, because it's inevitable. But I should say right now that I haven't played the game. And Stuart, someone tells me you know the game very well.
I do. Yeah.
Amazing. But before we get to The Last of Us, we've got a bit of kind of podcast admin to do, okay? So I'm going to do it right now. So first of all, I wanted to say actually a really big thank you to those people who have been listening to us so far, because we are at a point now in recording where there are episodes out and people seem to be enjoying it, which is really good. We've had some reviews on the different platforms and YouTube comments have been lighting up. The conversations happening there, apparently. So that's amazing. And considering we weren't even going to put it on YouTube, bonkers.
Yes.
But really lovely. The people are responding and getting involved. And that's fab. So thank you for that. And Stuart, how are you? Are you all right?
Yeah, not too bad. Yes. Okay.
Enjoying your Wednesday?
I am today. Yes. It's a semi-productive day with the washing machine and the tumble dryer running.
Wow.
So,
Are you domesticated?
fairly. Yes.
Fairly.
With guidance.
Plenty of guidance. Written instructions.
Yes.
That's cool. I did want to just actually check in with you because I know you've had quite a traumatic experience the last couple of weeks. I wanted to touch base and make sure you were okay because you did have a bit of an encounter with the Morriston Tickler. And I know it's been very, very hard for you to get past this and kind of work through all your feelings and thoughts about what happened.
Yeah.
I just wanted to check, are you all right?
I didn't think you were going to bring it up, if I'm honest, Michael. But
I know, but I just thought, you know what? Our listeners now care about you, so they deserve to understand what you've been through and just make sure you're okay, really.
Yes. Well, I think it's more important for me that the help is offered to the newly dubbed Morrison Tickler. I think as long as they get the help, I think they'll be okay.
What help do they need to do?
I don't know. I don't think there's anything medicinally that could help them.
Is it a psychological problem, do you think?
I think it might be for that.
Oof. It's so hard. How are you dealing with it? Like the PTSD and everything that's happened since, because it's been quite a rough ride.
Yes. Yeah, so just been scrolling like weird pictures on the wall, and
Oh wow.
it's crazy. That's obviously not true. That my wife would kill me.
Blame the children.
Yes.
Oh well, I'm glad you're okay, because it has been worrying me. Because I've heard horror stories about people who have encountered the Morrison tickler in different environments and different states of being, and I just thought yours was pretty unique and pretty frightening, actually.
Yes. Yeah, I've turned down the offer to go on that documentary.
Oh, have you?
Yes, I turned.
But I thought you'd have wanted to make sure people knew and were aware about it, and so they knew they weren't alone. Or I guess we're doing that now, I guess, aren't we?
We're doing that now.
So if anyone else out there has had an encounter with the Morrison tickler, whether you wanted it or not, please feel free to get in touch with Stuart. He is available to listen.
Yes.
Shall I move on?
I don't even know where this is going, because people might think, "Oh my god, is it actually like?"
Okay, disclaimer.
You should have put it at the start, but yeah.
I'm going to disclaim at the end because it's funnier. Something really funny happened to Stuart. He got tickled. He wasn't expecting it.
Yeah.
We won't go into much more detail than that because people don't need to know the details.
No.
It was just hilarious, and I felt like I needed to share it with the world.
Brilliant.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So, Stu, you've got a story you've got to tell me, apparently. You said that you texted me earlier in the week and you were like, oh, I've got something to tell you when we go on to the podcast. So, what is this mystical, magical story?
Right. Okay, all it is, I had a nice weekend out with my family. So
Okay.
it was me, Natalie, the kids, and we met up with our friends. So coincidentally, also called Stuart, and his wife Emma, and their kids. So it's like two families. We have two kids each. So we're all going to go to Margam Park for the day, right?
Okay.
So we go out. A really nice day. There's a lot of mud, which I wasn't really expecting, because I don't go outside. So we're having a nice day. Everything's going great, right?
Because I don't go outside. Sorry, I just clicked. Yeah, carry on.
So
I don't leave the house.
Right? Yes. So we're having a really nice day, and everything's going great, and everything's fine. Like it's lovely. The weather's a little bit cold, but we're getting by. And on the way home, obviously we're driving in separate cars now and then. So sometimes you have that thing where you might see whoever you were with, you might see them on the road, be like, oh look, there they are, one of them, right?
Yes.
So we're on the M4, and I can see in the mirror Stuart and his wife. They're in the car behind me. They're directly behind us, right? But we're on the M4. It's a fast road, right?
Yes.
And I just had this this crazy idea. Because whilst we're all in the car, I got the kids. My kids are sitting in the back. They got iPads. They got their headphones on, so they're in their own little world. And then me and Natalie are just in the front talking, right? So
okay.
See them in the mirror, and I can see he's going into the right-hand lane, so he's going to overtake me.
Oof.
Which is fine. Okay, I don't mind. So I'm looking, and I'm like, I said, Nat. She's like, what? I was like, look, I got a bit of a crazy idea. She's like, what? I was like,
I'm nervous already.
I was like, right. I said, look, Stuart and Emma are coming up on the right here now. Well, I think it'd be really funny as they go past us. We'll just stick two fingers up at them. And she's like, what? And I was like, no, just trust me, it'll be really funny. Come on, let's just do it. Right? So as they go past us, right? I'm like, right, come on now. She's like, oh my god, what do we do it? And I was like, just do it. And then we do it, right? And it is them, right?
Oh thank god. Okay, so I thought for a second it wasn't going to be them.
So it is them, isn't it? So I'm like, and then Stuart and Emma, they see it, and then they kind of do it back. And we have this kind of weird sort of moment at 60 miles an hour where we're flipping each other off. And then they go, right? So okay, that was funny. They're gone, right? And Natalie was like, oh, we need to stop into Asda really quick. So I was like, okay, fine. So we get to Asda, and sure enough, Stuart and Emma, they happen to get to Asda as well. So parking next to each other, and we were going to do that thing like, wasn't that funny that we did that thing? And then I only hear Emma was getting out of the car. She was laughing, and she pointed into the back seat where William sat, and she went, I don't know why he was doing it though. I was like, what? Because I was just like, what? So I look back at William, and I'm like, what were you? And he was just like, yeah, I was doing it too. And
That's amazing.
I was like, dude. And then I asked him, because obviously we were doing like 2 fingers, right? So so I asked him. I was like, so what did you do? And he showed me like I had 2 fingers, and I was like, do you even know what that means? And then, honest to God, he paused, and then he looked up and he went, peace.
Peace.
And I just went,
yes, that's right.
Yes.
That's right. Well done, William. It's all about peace. That is the vibe. We were sending peace to our friends in the car across the way.
Yes.
Oh, I love him.
Peace on the M4. But the other crazy thing is that obviously he had his headphones in, right? So he must have, at some point, heard what me and Natalie were saying.
Yeah.
I've just gone, I'll do that too.
That's amazing. You have taught him well.
Oh, yes.
I love that. He just got involved.
Just got involved. And I haven't checked with Dottie if she'd done it yet. But
give her time. She's young.
She's only 2, isn't she? Yeah.
Exactly. give her time. She needs time to learn. That's amazing.
Oh.
Okay, so I have something else to share with you, actually. So we're all the sharing today. Look at us.
Yes.
I'm going to send you something in an email, Stu, and I want you to open it and have a look at it. The subject's called surprise. Okay, so I'm sending it to you now. Hopefully it'll actually send and we won't have some sort of technical issue. And we'll just wait for you to get it and open it.
Right.
This is the part where I let you fill the silence with something. Because you will.
Yes. Your email is important to us. Oh, hang on. 1. Someone's email. Oh, right. Okay. So what's this here now? Surprise. What? What is that?
What that is? First of all, is it the most incredible thing you've ever seen in the world ever?
Oh my God, that's amazing.
I know. I'll explain you can explain to the listener what it is if you want.
I don't think there's enough adjectives in the English language.
So basically, I have an Insta friend, a Twitter friend, who's an artiste, and his name is Blue Fruity. I don't know his real name. Unless that is his real name, in which case it's a fantastic real name. I will link to his socials in the show notes because people need to follow him because his art's amazing. And he was doing commissions, and I was like, did you do me a favour? Do you fancy doing me as the Doctor and Stuart as Batman? And he did.
That's brilliant.
Isn't it phenomenal? So, we were having that conversation the other day where I was asking loads of questions about what your favourite Batsuit was. This is why.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
So I sent him pictures of us and a picture of your favourite Batsuit, which for the listener is, I think, is it the 1989 Batman one? Is it the original film one? And I was like, I really overthought it. I was like, look, I don't understand. Are you going to have him in the bat headpiece thing? Is he going to have to hold it? Are you going to be able to tell it's him without the bat headpiece? And then we were discussing which Doctor's outfit I should wear, and that will mean nothing to you, but what I'm wearing is an amalgamation of lots of Doctor's outfits.
So I recognize the scarf.
Yes, the scarf from Tom Baker, yeah, and there's a whole bunch of other ones that are in there. So what I'll do, I'll post it on our socials when this episode goes live as well, so people can see it. And please go look up Blue Fruity stuff because genuinely, he's incredibly talented. He does commissions to people, very reasonably priced as well. He went through the whole process with me. He asked me what I wanted. He sent me the kind of pencil sketch. He sent me the line drawing, and then wanted to make sure I was happy with it all, and then what colouring he wanted, and he was really, really good, and I cannot recommend enough. And I'm thinking it might need to be our channel art for either from now on or from series 2 because it's just so good.
Do you know what? What I really like is the fact that even though I look quite menacing in this picture as Batman, I still got my glasses.
So you had to have your glasses.
Yeah,
I
otherwise I wouldn't
know.
where to throw that batarang.
Exactly. Plus, it looks like you.
It does, doesn't it?
It looks like you, and it looks like me as well. Obviously, I mean, he's been very kind on my figure. I'm a lot slimmer in cartoon form than I am in real life, but I'm okay with that.
Yes.
But yeah, it's amazing, and yeah, I thought you'd like that. So that's our new little art.
Yes. Jodie's captured as well as is the facial hair. Like if you look at my facial hair, I look like I'm just trying to grow facial hair.
Hey, you're a really good trier.
I'm a trier, yes.
Oh, so yeah, do you like it?
I love Ant-Man.
It's amazing, isn't it? So yeah, I've sent you a copy so you can have fun with that too. So yeah, that's that. And yeah, I think we should probably move on to the kind of the bulk of the episode now. We've been talking for a long time. So, The Last of Us, the TV show. Stu, I mean, I'm gonna start with some facts. Actually, I myself have done some light googling and Wikipediaing this week,
Right.
because I am less familiar with The Last of Us than you. So I thought, let me do a little bit of homework. So, what I have learned about The Last of Us this week, I feel there should be a jingle. So it's based on the video game that came out in 2013. It's set in 2023, the show. This is just about the show, I don't know about the game. 20 years into a global pandemic caused by a mass fungal infection, lovely, which turns hosts into a zombie-like creature and collapses society. And I was like, that's one sentence. Yeah, that really is what the show's about.
Yes.
We're following Joel and Ellie. There have been 6 episodes so far on TV at the time of recording this, and it is the first ever HBO series based on a video game,
Wow.
which is cool. Neil Druckmann, who wrote and co-directed the original game, has assisted with the scripting for the 9 episodes of season 1, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
The first episode got 4.7 million viewers on its first day. And then over the next 12 days, that rose to over 22 million.
Jeez.
I know. And obviously, a second season's already been commissioned. So it's fair to say that this show has been a hit, a success. It's working.
Yeah.
And I am really enjoying it. How about you?
I'm honestly genuinely loving it. It's just so. I know it kind of sounds silly, but honestly, there's not enough adjectives to describe how good the show is.
Why is it so good?
I don't know. I mean, obviously, it's based off a video game,
Mm-hmm.
and often video game adaptations they tend to have a bit of a bad rap, and they for not being portrayed that well when it comes, when they do it to film or whatever. Not often it doesn't really please the fans.
Yeah,
because the majority of the fans going to see that are the fans of the video games. So they go in thinking oh, this better be as good as the game, and more often than not, they're disappointed.
Yes.
But I think with The Last of Us, I think the way it's kind of paced in the video game, it's a very kind of clear narrative. But it's not something I think that could ever work as a film. So the idea that they went down the route of making it a TV series was the best decision they could have made.
So going back in time a little bit then, because I don't know very much about this. So you've obviously played the game.
Yeah.
And did you play it back then when it came out?
No, I was a couple of years out. So the game came out in 2013.
Yeah.
And I got my first PS4 when 2015.
Okay.
So I started playing it from about 2014-15.
Okay. And was it as big a hit in the gaming world as the TV show has been in the TV world? Right away, it was massive.
Yeah, I didn't think it was something that I would like because
horror.
It's a survival horror, and based on my reaction of the Morrison tickler, the idea of
horrific. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. A horrific experience that we shouldn't really talk about more. But I feel like we're doing a service to the world by making people aware they're not alone.
Yes.
Yeah.
More terrifying than a clicker.
Oh, I mean, we could do a podcast episode about that. The tickler versus the clicker.
Oh yes, showdown.
I mean, we might even get the tickler to come and argue their side.
That would be interesting.
We wouldn't be able to get a clicker because
No.
they're fictional.
They're fictional. Yes.
I mean, I'm sure you could click for them.
Could do.
Are you going to try clicking right now? Oh, that was actually quite good.
Is that? Yeah.
Well, do it again, just to check. Oh, yeah, okay. Bit of reverb on that. We'll be all right. Okay,
Yes.
carry on. Sorry, I
Right,
digress.
Yeah, so I think it works better as a TV show because of the way it's quite episodic even in the game. And I think because there are moments in the game where, you could just be, walking through like the woods or whatever, and there's dialogue, which kind of adds to the story. But
Right.
it's not active gameplay, if that makes sense. So not all the story happens in like cutscenes or action moments. Sometimes it's just walking through the woods.
And is that unusual?
I think with gaming these days, not entirely.
Okay.
I would say just because we're at that sort of like, we're at the sort of current gen of games now where story is like really important in games. Acting is like really important now. Like we have like specific voice actors now for game and animation, which you wouldn't normally have. Remember there were games where like, it was just subtitles because there was no actual recorded dialogue. It would just be text.
Gosh,
so
that's really stepped up then.
Yes. The fact like Last of Us as a video game, they used like motion capture studios and
Okay.
they used specific actors to play the parts of Joel and Ellie.
Right.
So it's really like ramped up, like, yeah.
So
I think
go on.
I was gonna say I think that's like the first video game I've played where I've genuinely been quite emotionally invested in it.
I've heard this. This is a common thread online.
Yeah. It's well, I mean, we've seen the first 6 episodes, right? So, the opening to the first episode where this apocalypse or this pandemic is sort of really kicking off and nobody knows what the hell's going on and people are running around screaming and getting attacked and killed. The moment with Sarah, that first time I saw that in a game, I couldn't even like hide my tears. I was like, that's
horrendous. So in the game that happens as like you watch it happen, I guess, then, right? Or you're not part of the action. Is that more like a film part of the game?
That's more a cinematic scene.
Right, okay. Because like so the first episode I was very tense throughout the whole thing. Okay. And I think that's a common thread to the whole every episode comes on, I'm holding myself, so I don't know what's gonna happen. So I'm very invested. But the first episode, like that first kind of chunk of the first episode is obviously, like you said, the apocalypse happening. And you see obviously planes falling out of the sky. I mean, flipping heck, they spent a fortune. It was fantastically shot and it felt really visceral and like frightening and very horror, very action. It was amazing. And you're right, there's that part where that soldier turns to follow the orders of those above and kill Sarah. And it was horrific and it really did change everything. And I found it quite fascinating then that almost immediately after that, we jumped forwards in time.
Yeah.
So rather than seeing that stuff happening like flashbacks through an episode, as would be the kind of the norm for a TV show, we saw it happening now. I think that was a really, really good decision.
Yes.
Because sometimes narrative and story should be immediate. We should tell the story that's happening now and not rely so much on what happened before to tell us later.
Yes.
And that's what was brilliant. Although I'm going to kind of argue with myself that when we did then go to the future, I was a bit like, oh, I wanted to see more of the world going to shit.
Yes.
Because we don't get enough of that in real life.
Yes.
I should just watch the news. No. But yeah, I immediately I was like, oh no, that's a big shift in everything. And to expect your audience to shift that drastically But it took me a little while until the end of the episode to kind of feel my way into this new program, because it was a new program. We were suddenly watching, the aftermath of a zombie apocalypse. And this is what I find quite fascinating. And this is kind of why I asked at the start of this, why is this show so successful? Because we've seen zombie apocalypse programs and films. And generally, there's some that have been incredibly popular, but are still popular. So, I don't know why this one is different. Why has this one caught me when others hasn't? And I can't quite figure out what it is yet. It might be Joel and Ellie, because their relationship is really good, and I really like it.
Yeah, they're those two characters. I mean, they're really kind of like, they solidify the show with not so much their relationship, but how their relationship then develops. If you look at where they are when they first meet each other in episode 1, and sort of even going now up to episode 6, you can see that their relationship has changed, and it changes again when we get to the end of the season.
Oh, spoilers! No, I 100%. Their relationship is changing, and I like the development of it. Going back to what you said about how doing it as a film wouldn't have worked because the nature of the story from the game is quite episodic. I'll be honest, I felt that as well, because you have these kind of capsules of stories that are happening, and then they finish like you would finish a level in a game. So I'm talking about, for example, Tess. So Anna Torv's character. Now, Anna Torv, I absolutely adore as an actor. I love Anna Torv. She was the lead in Fringe, which I know I keep going on about. And I'm going to get the Blu-ray to you soon so you can watch the first episode, because Anna Torv is fantastic. And when I saw she was in it, I was like, oh my God, I love her. Hooray, I'm invested. Cut to shock horror. She didn't survive. She done. No. She finished. Tess is finished. It was nice to see her in the following episode after she had died in a flashback. It was nice to see her and to see her relationship with Joel. But it was like that chapter finished and we moved on.
Yes.
And then there's another chapter then with, or I forget their names, but the brothers who found them in the city. That isn't helpful.
Yeah, so you got Henry and Sam.
Thank you.
In Kansas City.
Thank you. Yeah, so they had that kind of that level of the game, and that finishes. And now we're on the next level. Do you know what I mean? So it does feel like that. And that is quite unusual for a TV show, for a journey that starts characterization and relationships and then finishes it.
Yes.
It's quite strange.
Yeah, I think
it's working.
It does work really well. I think that jump is quite unusual, isn't it? When obviously you see what happens with Henry and Sam, and it sort of cuts to black. And then it's 3 months later. And 3 months?
Yeah.
I think in the game, I don't think it's 3 months. I think it just cuts to the word winter. I think.
Right. Okay.
I can look back up, but yeah. So there are sort of almost sort of seasonal jumps, as in season, as in the weather. Those kind of jumps where it cuts to spring or it cuts to winter or whatever. But I think it's a good technique, because you don't feel like you're going day by day with these characters, because then you kind of think, well, what the hell? What's going to change day by day?
And let's be honest, how slow and boring with those episodes in The Walking Dead. It was a lot of character building, but you were waiting for something to happen for 10 episodes, and then there was a mid-season break, and you had to wait then another 6 months before you got the conclusion of that, and you had 10 episodes more of walking about, and then there was a big zombie fight, and it was they've learned from that. This way is much better.
Yes,
much better. So yeah, I mean, the first episode was great, and you had that time jump, and the second episode then where they're escaping the city with Ellie, and we have to kind of discuss that obviously Ellie is immune. So that was a good story device as well, to give them purpose, to give Joel this purpose, because it looked a bit like he'd just been going through the motions, kind of can't quite believe this is his life now, but at the same time, realizing what's got to be done and what needs to be done, and him stepping up. I mean, rather, he's a bit stuck, but he has to go on that journey, but he does do it.
Yes.
And the fact that Ellie is immune, that's a really interesting And it's not all children. I thought to
No.
myself at first, oh, is it something that like the new generations are building an immunity? But no, it's her.
Yeah.
She's special. She's the chosen one. She alone will stand against the infected and save
Yes.
us all. That's why every scene that she's in and there's something happening, I'm like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. I'm so tense all the time.
Yes.
And that actress is playing her amazing.
Oh, Bella Ramsey, yeah.
Yeah.
She's I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know about you, I've only ever seen her in Game of Thrones.
So she was in Game of Thrones, but then
Mm.
she was also in His Dark Materials,
Okay.
which I know you haven't watched, but I am a big fanboy of. And yeah, she's great in that too. She's just great.
Is that HBO as well?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, so she's just been in the HBO show because obviously
Yes.
Game of Thrones was HBO as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh man, amazing.
Yeah.
No, she's good. She's like I've seen some people like somebody asked me before like that they'd read online that like people were saying that she's portrayed slightly differently in the show compared to the game, that she's not as like strong as she's in the game. But I disagree massively. I think to me she's like the same. Like she's
Oh, I think she's strong.
yeah, she's a very very badass.
But I
think
like the
she-
nuance as well. How, when she was in that bedroom with the little boy who'd been bitten, and he
Yeah.
was like, "Stay up with me all night," and he was like, "Why aren't you afraid?"
Mm.
What did she say to that? What was her answer?
She said that she is afraid, but I'm sure she said, "I'm afraid of being alone."
Oh, I love
And
all
that's
that.
yeah, it's stuff like that that's like genuinely like really powerful. And
Yeah.
I think with Ellie, like on the surface, like she comes off as a badass, calls everybody a fucker.
Yeah,
And,
she's putting herself across as like this wisecracking, sarky, I'm afraid of nothing kind of girl, and that's what she's putting out there. But that's a front.
yes, I think she's had to do that
Yeah.
to survive. I think.
Interesting, actually, because then what?
Yes. Yeah.
And he's becoming
Almost.
this like reluctant father figure. Again, he doesn't want. It's the last thing he wants to be reminded of his daughter and
Yeah.
being a father. But it's what he gets stuck doing, which is obviously great storytelling.
Yes.
And then, like, episode 3 is the sidestep, where we go and we see the relationship between someone that Joel met in the past. And forgive me, I've forgotten their names.
Was this Bill?
Bill
Bill and Frank.
and Frank. Thank you, Bill and Frank. And this really, really wonderful sort of movie, really. This episode which exists outside of the main action, but using the world that's already been created in just 2 episodes to tell this very moving story, which I gather isn't anything to do with the game.
No. I was chatting about this recently to somebody, and they said that how, like, you see Bill in the video game,
Right.
but like, people sort of, I mean, people saying like, oh, it's kind of implied that he's gay, and it was like, and I go back and I look at the cutscenes, and I'm like, no, I wouldn't take it like that, because, I mean, in the video game, basically what happens is Joel needs to get a car, so he goes to this abandoned town, and only Bill is in this one town. Much like in the TV series, it's just him.
Yeah.
In the town. He's got all these crazy traps, which unfortunately you don't really get to see many of them in the TV show.
Right.
Tripwire devices, nail bombs. He's very paranoid.
He's badass though, isn't he?
He is, yes. So in the game, you go there to get a car, and he's on his own, and he basically has like a chat with Joel because they've known each other from before. And he has this line of dialogue where he says how, like, once upon a time he had a friend. And then the way he words it, he goes, I had a friend. Well, it was more like a partner. Somebody I had to cut loose.
Oh.
But just from the word partner, I didn't take it as, like,
Well, it could have been anybody.
Yeah. I didn't interpret it. Like, I didn't instantly hear then go, like, oh, you must have been gay. I didn't hear that.
No. But how great then that the showrunners, well, I mean, they have had the guy who wrote the script and co-directed the script of the game to assist with the scripting, haven't they? So
Yes.
I wonder whether there was a backstory in mind that he then developed on the TV show, or whether the TV show said, actually, we've heard this word partner, and we would like to explore this. And it was a really it was a really moving episode.
Yeah.
So early on, quite a brave thing for the TV show to do, because a lot of times I think TV shows that are established be brave and do episodes that are out of the norm in terms of whether it be plot or ways of storytelling. They try something different and to see how it works. But this is episode 3, and we're still getting used to the characters we know, and we have an episode that has barely anything to do with them, and we see the effects of this epidemic, this pandemic on the world, like not the people who are fighting, people who are just trying to stay alive.
Yeah.
That was really, really good.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy the episode?
I did like it. I think, like I say, it was very much like it had the same sort of, it was the same tone as Last of Us, but obviously you're focusing on, these two characters who don't really play a part in Joel and Ellie's story.
No, the wider narrative, no.
Yeah. So they have their own story, which I was fine with. But I know we've we've briefly discussed this before about, when we're talking about representation and diversity on TV shows and stuff, I feel like there's a right way of doing it, and I've seen many what I would consider wrong ways of doing it. Very kind of I don't know what the right term is, but I think very kind of in your face,
stereotypical, I guess.
Yeah, being really heavy on that, and sort of almost like they go, "No, like me, because we're different," and it's like, no, you don't need to do all that. Just chill, Whereas this, this episode, you're invested in the characters. I mean, what I saw, was almost a sort of like a blank canvas. I just saw two people who met each other, who loved each other, who grew together. I think, doesn't it time jump 10 years?
It does, yeah. You see a huge amount of their life.
Yeah, and then you see the end of it, and I was very surprised by the end because, that doesn't happen to Bill in the game.
Right.
So I was half expecting any minute now, Joel and Ellie are going to rock up, and in the video game there's a sort of a back and forth between Ellie and Bill.
But
you don't get that in the show. But
that scene though, where he gives the pills in the wine to Frank, and then Bill takes his drink, and Frank's like, "What?" And without even saying it, he's just like, "Yeah, I'm done too." And they just go into that room and lock the door. But then what's even that's emotional enough. But then there's that you're right, the time jump then, where they get to the house and you kind of think you don't know there's been a time jump. You just see Joel and Ellie in their car, and they arrive and they come in, and you think he's looking around and he's like, "Oh, this doesn't look quite the same." And we're thinking the same thing. Oh, it's not quite how it was. And they go in, there's all that dust on the table, and you think, "Oh, it's been time." And he can't get in that room. It's like they locked the door. And then when he read that letter, did Ellie read the letter out loud?
Yes.
I think. And she said, "We've locked the door. We've left the window open. We don't want it to smell." And I was like, "Oh, these two, this is so good." It's tragic, but it's wonderful.
Yeah.
And it was really emotional. And it was like watching a movie.
Yes.
And it was very special, I think, actually. And you're right, the representation was really worthy. It was just really good. It didn't have to be that.
No.
It could have been a heterosexual relationship, and that would have been wonderful as well. But the fact that they chose to do a gay relationship like that was really awesome in something so mainstream as it should be, Yeah.
It
was great.
It was very, very far from the video game, but I mean, me personally, it didn't really bother me because it was just kind of okay, well, I mean,
because it's an adaptation.
Yeah.
Things are going to change from the game, and they're going to have to do that because how long does the game go on for in time?
Oh, it depends how good you are at.
No, but you know what I mean. We're seeing a certain amount of time in the first series, so surely the information from the game is going to be finite, and they're going to have to invent things to keep the TV show going if that's what they want to do.
Yes.
So this was a really great way of getting a whole story and a whole episode and seeing the effects of this horrendous collapsing of society in a different way.
Yeah.
It was nice. It was a nice breather. It was nice that it happened early on as well, because actually, if we were really getting into the action and then this happened, you'd feel like you were being taken away from the action.
Yeah, I think the pacing would have just grinded to a halt.
Yes, yeah, and it did stop. It did stop for this story, but I was invested quite early on. Bill was a very interesting character, and I was very intrigued. I like that. But then, of course, it does move to Kansas City, and all hell breaks loose.
Yes.
Again. Do you know when they were pinned down behind the car? I was so frustrated that they got the supplies they needed, they got the car they needed, and then they had to abandon it, and it got like smashed up. I was so frustrated. I was like, no, but you could have just no. Oh, I was gutted for them.
Yes. Yeah, that's a feeling that gamers share as well, I think.
Oh.
For that ambush.
Oh.
Yeah, because the ambush scene, like, obviously I knew that was like coming in it. So like when they got in the car after seeing like Bill, I was like, okay, I know what's coming next. Like, yeah, the way they get ambushed by the hunters. Although weirdly, the hunters in this, like in the game, it's just implied that it's just like a very large group of sort of thugs who are basically robbing and killing people, taking their stuff.
Right.
That's kind of it. Like,
right. Okay.
But in the TV show, it's like an organized community where you had, you had Kathleen, who isn't really mentioned by name in the video game.
Okay.
So her issue with like Henry and all that's not in the game at all. So it's all right. It's different to the game, but it's great because it allows them now to tell these stories that they probably wouldn't have been able to tell in a video game.
Yes, because obviously the game would have had limitations. The game was a game, and it wasn't just a story. But the story has to be great in the game to keep you going. It's a really weird, strange balance.
Yes.
Kathleen, I found very dark.
She was, wasn't she?
Oof.
Yeah.
Very dark.
I think what was misleading about Kathleen is that I genuinely believe from a sort of like an acting point of view, she had quite like a sort of an innocent sounding voice.
You did. Yes, you're right.
And so I think that threw people then when she was like, killing people.
But she killed the doctor, didn't she?
Yes.
Early on, you were like, that wasn't wise. So she's obviously ruled by her heart, not her head. Yeah. And that's a very dangerous leader.
Yes.
So I just got very tense vibes straight away.
Yeah, she's very unpredictable, I think.
Very. And they were stuck in this flipping block trying to hide and move through, and it was all very, very scary. Because ultimately what this story is telling us as well is how once society collapses, how people choose to live and survive is often not good.
Yes. Yeah, I remember it being particularly dark when she'd captured all those people, didn't she?
She did.
She was asking them like where Henry is. I think one guy like fessed up.
Yeah.
And then she sort of said outside the room, she's like, right, we don't need the rest of them now. So instead of letting them go, it was just kill them all.
Oof.
And it was like, shit.
And these are people who, this society needs people to survive.
Yes.
Not just to procreate, but to do the work that needs doing. And she just didn't value their lives at all.
No.
They were expendable to her, and that made her very dangerous. I know they had that scene where she was in her old childhood bedroom, and they tried to give us some empathy, I guess, towards her and what she's been through, because obviously she's been through hell, because that's what's made her like this.
Yeah.
And I get that, but at the same time, I was like, I know why you're doing this, because she's about to do something horrific, isn't she? She's already done some horrific things. She's about to do more horrific things, and you want us to understand what's made her this way. But ultimately, the world going to shit is what's made her this way. It's what's made everyone this way.
Yes.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And then obviously we come to the story with their names, the brothers have lost their names again, Henry and
Sam.
Sam, which was, I mean, first of all, it was really lovely. And I thought, oh, we're going to get like a little group of 4 now, traveling, and this is how the show builds its cast to take the cast with them, because obviously they got rid of Tess so early on.
Yeah.
They just got rid of Frank and Bill. And I felt like I didn't know whether Kathleen was going to be. Are we going to be stuck now in Kansas City for a few more episodes than we were? And Kathleen's going to be like the big bad for now. They're trying to kind of break out against, and we're going to discover how this society has kind of, well, how it's thrived, but how it's also failing and crumbling. I didn't know whether we were going to be there for a long time. But the Sam and Henry story really was kind of that was just chopped off as well. But I did think that was the cast we were going to be stuck with for a little while. Not stuck with, we were going to live with for a little while. You know?
Yeah.
Must be quite a different experience for you watching this, having played the game and know so much already.
Yeah, I think so. I think I know. Obviously, I roughly know what's coming. I mean, 'cause I was thrown off completely with Bill and Frank. Like, I did not see that coming at all. But generally, yeah, I kind of see characters, and you generally kind of know the outcome of that character.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to survive.
No.
Or
No.
yeah, but
Can
then
can I just ask you about the big beastly zombie thing that came out of that flipping hole in the ground? Right, because that whole sequence was amazing, right?
Yeah.
That bit where they were walking towards that house, they were being shot, like shot down. I was like, oh my god! And then he had to go in there and like kill that guy, and that was really good. He was like, don't do it, and he did it, and he had to do what he had to do. That was amazing. And then all hell broke loose, and that hole opened up in the ground, and they all came running out. And I hate when zombies can run. It's one of the things that makes it really frightening for me, because that was a trend really that happened, wasn't it? It changed where zombies didn't just drag their bodies around with them. The kind of the new trend with zombies is that they can run, and like World War Z, like that still frightens me. But yeah, and they all came up, and then this massive beast of a mushroom came out to the ground, and I was like, what the fuck? What the fuck is it? What is it?
It's called a bloater.
Okay.
Right. And in the video game, you see him when you're on a mission with Bill. You have to go through a high school, and you see him in like the gymnasium, kind of bursts through the doors. And basically what that is that's the next stage of infection. So it's beyond clicker. It's where the fungus has grown further, so it's over their body. But what it does is, in the game at least, the fungus now, because it's all over the body, it sort of acts as like armor. So it's difficult to kill. It can remove bits of its own fungus and throw at you. So it like the spores.
Stunning.
Yeah. It's very hard to kill in the game. More often than not, you're just running away from the fucking thing.
Right.
It's
terrifying.
You don't have enough bullets in the game to take it down. Like, but yeah, I knew that was there because the previous episode when Kathleen was in the room with that guy, the guy with her right hand man, like, and they saw the thing in the ground, and it was like I remember telling my friend, like, I know what's in there.
Oh, right. Okay.
So I knew he was coming. And and obviously you see him in the trailer, like, and I thought, no, this is where the bloater is going to emerge from.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was very well done. It looked exactly just like it is in the video game, and this is what I love about the show as well, is that its attention to detail is just insane. Because remember, I think it was episode 2 where Tess, Joel, and Ellie, they got to get to Capital City. There's a shot of like one building has fallen over, it's resting on the other building.
Yes.
That is exactly like the game.
Oh wow.
100% just the same, and I couldn't believe that. I was like, shit, like this is ridiculous. And even down to the clothes that they wear, like the same.
Okay.
And I couldn't believe that. Like, I mean, like it just in the last episode now where Ellie's got that pink and white hoodie.
Oh right.
It's the exact same.
Oh, I love that. That's really cool. I love that. But briefly before we do move on though from where we are, because you talk about episode 2. You know, the clickers. That scene was incredible. I cannot tell you. I don't think I breathed I don't think I was inhaling. I think I just sat there in fear, in absolute fear. They are horrific.
Yes.
I think I'm more frightened of the clickers than I am of the bloater at this point.
Yeah.
They're horrible. They're absolutely horrible. I really didn't like them. And I did want to just quickly say that I was quite devastated about what Tess had to do. I was devastated she got bit. I like the actress anyway, and she can lead a show. She's the lead of a show. She is the lead, and she has that ability. And I was like, oh no! And the fact that she got bitten, that wasn't painful enough. But she had to stand there and have this guy come at her with his mouth open, with these fungal spores coming out of his mouth. And did she open her mouth or something? They were going into her while she was trying to kind of make that lighter, like fire spark. That was horrific.
Yes. Yeah, but again, that scene, that isn't what happens in the video game at all.
Okay.
Like she does get bit on the neck, and she shows Joel, and you have the same kind of dialogue. But in those first 2 episodes in the game, they're being pursued by the military, basically.
Oh, right.
So when they get to Capital City, the Capitol building rather, and the Fireflies are dead, the military van like sort of pulls up.
Right.
And then, so what she decides to do in the game is to try and like give Joel and Ellie a bit of a chance. So she holds them off. But obviously, because she's infected anyway, she's going to die anyway. So I mean,
but similar story then, just with a different pursuer.
Yeah, basically.
But I think at that point we'd already had quite a lot of the politics of where they were running from and getting out past the military and the people, the guards and things. So it made sense to give us a bit more zombie threat.
Yes.
And there was that bit where they were all lying in the sun, weren't they? Or in the shade, I can't remember, where there was sun in the shade and you could see the root system kind of glowing and how they can actually hear things from miles away. Yeah. And that's really frightening. And something that actually is really, really frightening because you have to be careful where you step.
Yeah, I think that's new to the show.
Oh, I loved it. What a great addition then.
Yeah.
I'm on board with that.
It made the fungus feel more alive, didn't it?
Yes, and less of just like a wandering, dead, empty shell that just want to eat you or infect you,
It wasn't some of
getting involved. We have that horrendous end with Sam and Henry, which was awful but beautifully done. I love that she tried to heal him with her blood.
Yes.
What a kind of clever thing, but also kind of a naive thing. And you can completely see her brain and how that's worked. And she wanted to help him because he was her friend, a new friend that I think she thought we're going to go the distance now together. And I think there was quite an instant attachment there, like I had.
Yes.
And then he was just sat there with his back to her, and I was like, "Oh no." Yeah,
I knew when she woke up and he was facing the other way. I knew. I was like, "Yeah, they're doing it."
Yeah. That's that was horrific. And then the older brother having to stop him, and then making the decision to end his own life because he had nothing left. And the really interesting mirror there, I think, being held up to Joel, because that's what Joel could have done.
Yes.
Joel could have just ended his life once his daughter had gone and had been murdered. And that mirror being shoved in his face, along with Ellie being shoved in his face right there. What an interesting thing to throw at him.
Yeah.
Making him really think about what he wants and actually realize this is what I didn't do. I didn't do that. And now I have this girl following me around that I've got a duty of care over. Then is when the bloater.
That's right, yeah.
Oof. And of course, Kathleen got that lovely end that she deserved.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but she did. Putting it out there. I was happy that she was eaten by that zombie fungus thing.
Yes.
I never thought I'd say that. But she was horrible, and I want my heroes to carry on. So I'm glad that happened. But yeah, and then of course this idea now that Joel's been confronted with his what another kind of carer did for that child and couldn't live without him, and saw no point in going on without him. And then they end up then at this new place 3 months later after trekking through the winter and the wilderness, and there's a community.
Yeah, Tommy.
Didn't expect that.
No.
I think I expected that just not to happen. Him to be looking for each other for a long time, or to eventually find them, you know? So
Yeah. Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? I think what's great about this show is that I feel bad for Joel because his mission has to constantly like sort of change and evolve because
yes,
it's meant to be like, oh, get Ellie to this point and then they'll sort it out. And then that didn't work out. It's like, oh, now you need to get it to this point or whatever. And the end goal was to sort of get her to Tommy because that's what Tess told him.
Yeah.
In the second episode, it's like Tommy used to be a firefly. Take Ellie to Tommy, and then you'll be fine. Like, but obviously, that doesn't work out because Ellie doesn't want that.
Plus, Tommy's got a kid on the way.
Yes. Again, it's an addition to the TV show. That's not something that's in the game, but yeah. But that's a very good addition because now he has like a sort of almost a reason to not be able to take on Ellie.
Yeah.
Why should he put his family in danger?
Yeah, I think he needed that. Plus the community that they've built, it's actually working. And they've got a system, a way, it being, up in the mountains and it being cold and all that stuff is working with them. And it was really jarring to see like a school and a Christmas tree and a cinema. It was really suddenly like, oh, this is odd, but it's really good that this community has worked like that. That's how it should work.
Yeah.
And it was great for them to see that, I think, at this point and be like, we do have to, and then for Joel then to actually come round to the decision, well, not just the decision, but obviously give Ellie a choice, didn't he, at the end of whether she wanted him or not after what he'd said and what he'd done. And even for him to give her that as a choice and offering himself like that has made him realize how different he was from Henry and Sam.
Yes.
So that was really, really good. But then we end up with what happens next.
Yes. It's yes, and I would say as a story, it's kind of ever evolving, isn't it? I mean, it's not just nothing is straightforward in these characters' lives, which is nice to see because it's not like the same thing like all the time.
No.
So they are sort of mixing it up and changing things. I'm trying to remember how episode 6 ended now because obviously she made the decision to. Did he go to the university?
Yes, they went to the university and it was empty, and they were upstairs looking around. There's monkeys about, and I was like, "Oh Christ, are we going to have some zombie monkeys now? What's going on?" That wasn't a pleasant moment for me. And then because they can swing and they can bite as well, I didn't like it. Anyway. But then we had they some people kind of coming around. They saw some people coming around the building, and they're like, "Shit, we got to go." So they go to leave through the back way. They are running towards that horse. Then one of them comes out of nowhere, and Joel flipping snaps his neck.
Yeah.
Oof. Like I know, like time is of the essence. It's hard to get into the morality of living at a time like this and in a world like this, because obviously that morality is shifted from what we know now, and it's about survival, and I get it. And he's also carrying cargo that is Ellie that is ultimately the most important thing, because A, she's a child, B, she's dependent on him, and C, she's possibly got a cure in her veins. So there's all that. So he obviously times of the essence, but in that moment, he did choose to snap that guy's neck.
Yes.
And obviously, if there was more time, he probably would have suffocated him or kind of like put him to sleep, know, and then walked away. But there were others running around the side of the building with weapons. So I get it, but oof. And then she saw that. And you
Yeah.
could see they looked each other in the eyes. They were like, oh my God, you just killed that guy. And then she looked down and there was a fucking bat sticking out of his sides.
Yeah.
Like a club thing, like a snap, like a stake.
Yeah.
Like he just been like staked through the bloody. And I was like, oh my God, there's too much happening. There's too much happening. And they had to get on that horse and ride away. And we get to the conclusion where he falls off the horse and she's just sitting by him being like, no, I need you. I literally don't know what the fuck I'm doing without you. And then the episode ended. Now, I have to just say, and I would never, ever normally advocate this, but I did text you because I had to Google whether he was still alive. Because I couldn't cope. I realized this show has really got me, and I am totally on board because I couldn't cope with a cliffhanger. I had to go online and see just whether he was alive. And Jay and I were like, we were sitting there. It was Jay who went online, and I was holding my breath, and he was like, "No, he is in next week's." I was like, "Oh, thank God. Okay, he's in next week's. That's fine. That's fine. I'm okay then. I'm okay." But Jesus Christ.
I mean, you say he's alive, but
okay, but he's that wasn't the last we saw of him, right?
I mean, the show does do flashbacks and.
I hate you, Stuart. No, it's fine. I don't want it to be spoiled for me, but that was very, very moving. And okay, let me just, before I let you speak about it, because I know I'm speaking a lot, sorry, but let me just get this off my chest, just in case, like, I'm going to speculate here, okay? So yeah, he might be in next week's episode, you're right. Perhaps he's just in a coma now and that's it. And perhaps he just dies. And if that's the case, right, if that is the case, and that was it, first of all, I can kind of understand because the actor has got the Mandalorian to do. He's got a galaxy to save over the other end of the world, of the universe. Like, so I understand that. There's all that practical stuff in it, and that kind of makes sense. But B, also, if you think about Joel's journey to this point, like what I've said already, we saw him lose everything in his daughter. We saw him just going day by day, just burning the bodies of the infected because that's all he had to do. He isn't living his life. He's also, then gets gets dumped with this girl, and he loses Tess, which we don't really, he hasn't really addressed, and I think that's probably explains that he did actually feel a lot for her, but I don't know that because that's not what we've seen. And then he gets thrown on this journey. It's a shit storm of a journey that he then comes to the conclusion after all that stuff that we've already talked about that actually, okay, he's going to commit to taking Ellie on her journey because it's the right thing to do, and she does depend on him, and actually he feels for her, like he has feelings for her, and for him to come to that conclusion to then get killed, if that's what's happening, that is a rather kind of beautiful, tragic, poetic story. And he's gone through that in 6 episodes.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can't spoil it for me, and I don't want you to because I've watched 6. We'll probably come back and talk about the last 3 and what happens next. But that was, in a way, beautiful.
Yes.
And it was shot beautifully as well. And the cinematography in that last episode, all the mountains and the horse riding and the sunsets, and it was beautiful.
Yes.
So if that was the last time we saw him be, his final thoughts?
Yeah, Phil.
Yeah, let's do final thoughts then for the 6 episodes so far. You go.
I'm really happy with like how it's gone so far. I think it's a good example of how to adapt a video game into a TV show. It still maintains like all the emotion and the storytelling techniques from the game. The acting is superb.
Really good.
And it's also, the set pieces are like amazingly accurate. Like I didn't expect for the set pieces to be as accurate as they were. I thought they were just going to go with a sort of like a generic city kind of thing. Like, oh, this building's been destroyed. But no, the fact that they've got the detail down down to like buildings being in certain positions, and yeah, just brilliant.
It is good. Is there anything that you don't like, or you've been disappointed in, or anything like that?
No, not really. I mean, I think I'm always going to have that thing where, because I've played the video game,
Mm,
I might have the thing of like, oh, I wish they'd put this in or
Mm.
whatever. But then at the same time, I'm like, no, I understand why they didn't actually, because this is a TV show. It wouldn't have worked on a TV show. It works in a game, but it doesn't work in a TV show.
you do have to.
Mm.
I think that it's just been. It's really good. And I mean, what I was going to ask you was what's the general kind of fandom's reaction then to it? Have you touched base with like the Twitterverse? How are the fans of the game kind of generally reacting to this?
I don't always have like a true reflection of what the show is like, but I mean, I personally, right, I love the video game. The video game, it's probably my favorite video game of all time.
Oh, wow.
Which doesn't make sense because it's a survival horror game and I'm scared of everything. So that doesn't I put that ahead of like the Batman games, if I'm honest.
Wow.
For like for what it is.
Wow.
So I personally, I'm really happy with it, and this is why I think this TV show meant so much to me, because having like loved the game, you want the show to be good. Like, I mean,
Oh God, yeah.
like we've seen adaptations in the past where like, they put them on the big screen or they put them on TV shows and they've been crap, but then you kind of just go, move on, and it was.
Well, it's a risk, isn't it?
Yeah.
Adapting anything from one medium to the next is a risk, and there've been lots of failed, adaptations. And I say failed, but like they had to make decisions based on what they have in front of them, based on their means.
Yeah.
And so far, the kind of episodic nature of this is working really well in its favor, I think.
Yes.
And they've got some really good actors, and I mean, the show looks stunning, and it really is building its world. Everything on screen just is really fantastic. I have to say, I haven't been disappointed, and the general feedback is that it's really good. And the my circle online on Instagram and stuff are all sort of saying, wow, this show is getting better, and this episode's really good. I can't wait for you to hear what you think about this episode. That kind of thing, It's not been a lot of negativity.
No.
Which is very unusual for fandom, because it tends to generally divide people.
Yeah. I think the only element of a divide there is in this is the fact that you've got people who are just like yourself, who are just watching the TV show, but then you've also got people like me who have played the games and sort of know roughly what to expect.
But that's an interesting point, though, because there's plenty of things that I have watched adaptations of that I've read the books of, for example. So, like the Northern Lights, his Dark Materials series that just finished on HBO. It had 3 seasons in it, and it told each book in those 3 seasons. And I was watching that to see like how they would do this, or what it's a different experience, but it isn't necessarily less fun.
No.
But what's interesting about The Last of Us so far is that it seems to have appealed to a lot, and seems to have become mainstream, much like what not Lord of the Rings, much like what Game of Thrones did.
Yes.
It was a high fantasy, almost period piece that took over the mainstream audience, which is quite unusual. The Walking Dead did it as well, I think, actually.
Yeah.
For a time. I think it's lost it now. I think it's now got its cult status, but this seems to have captured people straight away. And the only thing I can think about that is, obviously, we've seen zombie apocalypses before, but it must be about the characters and the relationship and how it looks and the pace. The pace has got to have a huge factor in this, because we can't watch The Walking Dead again. Get up the road.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's doing well.
Also, did you notice the last episode of The Last of Us? I think, I'm pretty sure I got this right, that this was the only episode that didn't have any infected in it.
Right.
There was no clickers or anything in it, because it was just about Joel and Ellie getting to Boston and stuff.
Yeah.
Because the previous episode, you had like the clickers and the bloaters and all that.
Yeah.
In
I
episode
mean,
5,
you're gonna have episodes like that though, right? Where the budget allows for certain things. And I'm guessing that the having all those there is quite an expense. Having said that, this episode looked cinematic. It didn't look like
Yes.
any expense was spared. It looked amazing. And I just want to point out as well the actress who played the kind of... I have it in front of me. Let's find out.
Is it Marie? Might be Marie. I don't know.
Maria. So
right.
she is an actress who used to be in True Blood.
Okay.
And she was great in True Blood. A very different character. But it was really awesome to see her. And I was like, is that Tara? Because that's the character in True Blood that she plays. I mean, she was like, it is Tara. I was like, where's she been? We loved Tara. And it was really great to see her and playing this role that was very different. And actually, her voice was different. She was speaking differently. And that was really interesting. It got me thinking about actors using their voice in a different way, depending on the character they're playing. And I was like, oh, that's really an interesting thought. But it was lovely to see her. I loved the part she played, the kind of like maternal law. I don't know how else to describe it, but it was a really interesting mix that I really liked. And we also didn't touch on the fact that Ellie found out about Sarah.
Yeah.
And that she'd sort of suspected something, but she wasn't sure what it was, and now she knows.
Yeah. Yeah, and she has the balls to mention that to Joel. And
she does. Balls or naivety, I guess. Just showing her youth a bit there.
Yeah.
And I quite like this juxtaposition of the youth, but then she gets given a gun when they need her to have a gun.
Yes.
So I think that's quite an...
Yeah, I think that's probably one of my favorite standard scenes, is that exchange that she has with Joel in the bedroom. That the quote that she gives to him, when she like shoves him, and she basically tells him that everyone she's ever been with has either left her or died, except for him. And I think that's great because you get to see that's like the first day in front of Joel.
She's opening up to...
They're both in like a really vulnerable position there, because he's thinking about Sarah, and Ellie's just like, yeah, but I don't want to be alone. I need you. And this is where I think the similarities occur for these characters. I think this is that moment, like in the game, it's kind of like a turning point for the characters, because it's where they both kind of realize, like, okay, obviously we both had shit happen to us. This is the common denominator, so yeah, we got to watch out for each other.
Yeah. And I absolutely adored when she was like, oh, that's so cool, you were a contractor. I thought that was brilliant. That she takes the piss out of him as well. It's a really interesting relationship. It's so multi-layered. And I think that's what we're coming back to every week, and that's why Joel cannot die. And I really fear for what happens to Ellie now in the next 3 episodes. Because even if you go on IMDb, which is where I am now, and you look at the next 3 episodes, so one is called Left Behind, fantastic, and then one is called Episode 8, and one's called Episode 9, and the pictures they have nothing to do with Joel. So they've played this very, very well. Because they know people like me are going to go and look.
Do you know the fact that you've just said that one of them's called Left Behind?
Yeah, that's the next episode.
Oh, I know exactly what's going to happen in that episode.
Oh, God. And then the next episode don't have a name, and there's a picture in episode 8 of what looks like a bunch of military people. So that's a bit frightening. And then the picture of episode 9 is just Ellie just on her own, and I'm like, great. Absolutely great. So...
it's almost like, I don't know, almost as if like Ellie is... Like, what's the title of the show again?
Let's move on, Stuart. Let's not do this. I can't wait to come back and speak to you once the next 3 episodes have been on, and we can talk about the 3 episodes and maybe the series as a whole in that episode, because it's really fascinating.
Yes,
this show has really caught me, and it's really caught a lot of people, I think, and it's just doing so well. I can't wait to watch more.
Same.
I'm glad we're watching it once a week
Yes.
because you get that time to digest and that time to really, really think about what's happening. But at the same time, this week, I really wanted to be able to watch the next episode the next night. I really wish we could. Oh. Well, I think that we should wrap it up then. So, anything else you want to say, Stu?
If you, I don't know. You don't really actively play video games at the moment, do you?
I don't.
Because I was going to say that I would implore you to at least give it a shot playing Last of Us if you were able to do that.
I think if it was something that I was able to do, I can see why I would do it with this particular game.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those things where I only found out about it through a friend, and but this is a friend that loves horrors and stuff, so I was a bit like, oh, I don't trust you.
You're going to scare me.
Yes, but yeah, I'm very glad that I did it. I'm yet to play because they made a sequel video game called Part 2.
Great name.
Yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it? So I'm looking forward to playing that if and when I do eventually get it, because I just enjoy that universe so much. And yeah, but any listeners out there, if you get an opportunity to play Last of Us, I can only go off the first one because it's the only one I've played. Just play it. It's a great game.
That's cool. I'm going to say my final thought is that if you go onto TikTok right now, there are a lot of TikToks where you can see the scene being played out in the game alongside the scene being played out in the show.
Oh.
And I've been watching quite a lot of them recently because it just intrigues me to see how similar they are. And they are making the rounds and they are really good. Because like you said, it shows how much detail they've gone into about what you can see. What I'm going to do, I'm going to edit this in such a way that that's never going to have happened. Right. So Stuart, before we actually go, have you got a quote for us this week?
I do.
Now, is it themed? Or is it gonna take me right out of The Last of Us?
Oh yeah, it's very left field, if you like.
Okay, go on then. Left field quote us, go on.
Who is this person who speaks to me as though I needed his advice?
Oh. You are stumping me with these. You're doing it on purpose as well, aren't you?
These aren't real. I made them up.
Yeah, I bet one day you're going to tell me they're not movie quotes.
Yeah.
I'm just writing shit down and telling you it and see when you're going to clock on. I don't know what that's from.
Really?
I don't know what that's from. I'll probably kick myself.
Say
it again.
Who is this person who speaks to me as though I needed his advice?
Oh, I love it though. It's so sarky and sassy. So, yeah, I think we'll end it there. So from a Last of Us newbie and the victim of the Morriston tickler, say goodbye, Stu.
Goodbye, Stu.
Thank you for listening to What's Your Fandom. Please hit the subscribe button to make sure that you never miss an episode. And if you could leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts, not only will we be your bestest friends forever, but it will also help other listeners to find us. You can follow us on TikTok and Instagram, where our username is @fandompod, and on YouTube, just search for What's Your Fandom. And we will catch you next time.